When I was a little girl, I attended this church called Seventh Presbyterian on the south side of Chicago. The whole church itself was about this big. And on Easter Sundays, the church was packed out. Maybe 12, 13, 50 of us on an average Sunday. But on Easter Sunday, the church was packed out. You couldn't get in to church. And I was little, but I got really clear that the older people were resentful about all those strangers coming to church once a year and sitting in the pew, taking up space, sitting on my pew. That's certainly not a middle problem. But in some churches, this is an issue. My classmates who weren't Christian would go shopping for Easter clothes, and then they would go to church, and they would go to church, and then they'd go to a show, which was Chicago speak for movie. What's with all of the people who are not sure what they believe, all of the people who are not positive that they would even call themselves Christians, all of the folk from all kinds of walks of life who want to get dressed up and go to church on Sunday to hear a little bit about this story? They're looking for something. We're looking for something. We want to find something for our lives, some kind of meaning for our lives in this holy story. Let's see what it means to us today. I'm fascinated about how the difficulty Mary had in seeing Jesus. First of all, it was dark outside. It was dark. It was one of those moonless nights that had led to a dawn, and the murkiness of that pre-dawn light where the sun hasn't quite come up had shadows all over the place. She could not see for how dark it was. So Mary's eyewitness is already clouded. She can't see through the murky light. And she really can't see into the tomb as she kind of peers down to bend and look into this cave. She can't see through a veil of tears because she's sad and brokenhearted. She can't see. So when she sees the angels in the tomb, they're kind of, otherworldly and white and perhaps there and not there. She sees Jesus face to face and hears him speak, and she does not recognize him. She can't see that it's Jesus because she's not expecting a dead body to be talking to her in the garden. She can't see because it's dark, and she can't see because she's not expecting to see. And in fact, it isn't until Jesus speaks her name behind her back, talking about her behind her back, that she turns around and is able to recognize who the Christ is. We can't see sometimes what God is doing in the dark. All of us experience these times of darkness where we cannot see the presence of our holy God. Our bodies are hurting. And somehow in our childhood faith, we've been taught that if we're good enough, strong enough, bad enough, pray enough, diligent enough, that God will heal us. In the dark space between sickness and healing, we can't see the presence of God. We've been taught that if we are faithful enough, if we're just nice enough, the job we're looking for, the career we desire, the wealth we think that is a part of our entitled American dream, safety and security that comes from making it, when we feel insecure, when we can't pay our bills, when we're in between and in betwixt this job and the next one, we feel flooded by shadow and darkness, and we can't see the presence of God. When we've been praying and praying and praying for years for a relationship, for someone to love us, to hold us, to understand us, to partner with us, and this eludes us, we feel sorrow and sadness and darkness, and we can't find the presence of God. But here's what we'll miss if we don't listen to the text very well. It's dark outside when Mary gets to the tomb. It's dark outside when Mary gets to the tomb and the body is already gone. The resurrection happened in the dark. The resurrection happened in the dark. Darkness gets a bad rap. As a dark girl, I will tell you, the darkness gets a bad rap. In the darkness, seeds are broken and grow. In the darkness, a baby gestates for 9 months and is able to be born fully formed into new life. In the darkness, in the hospital room, in the darkness is the time our bodies recover and restore. Good things happen in the darkness. Sleep happens in the darkness. Sometimes tenderness happens in the darkness. Darkness gets a bad rap, amen? The resurrection happened in the darkness, and it was discovered in the light. In the dark spaces, in the places where tough, terrible, traumatic things are happening, God is there. We don't have to wait for the sunshine to experience our holy God. We don't have to wait for the light for God to show up. I think Easter is a little bit about celebrating the presence of God in the darkness. A little boy was outside playing with his chihuahua, and he got kidnapped by a man who put him in the car and drove him around for 3 hours. And this little 9-year-old boy started singing a Hezekiah Walker song about praising God. And he sang it over and over and over again and got on the kidnapper's last nerves. The kidnapper told him to shut up, shut up, shut up, and cussed him out quite thoroughly. And the little boy just kept on singing, all praises to our God, all praises to our God. And the kidnapper stopped the car and put him out on the street. I think Easter's a little bit about how God is present in the dark. Another little boy, last week, a 13-year-old was standing outside of a pizza joint in Queens, and bullets were flying. You know the story because some stupid gangbangers, don't make me talk about how we need to do better gun control. That's another sermon for another time. But some stupid gangbangers are shooting wildly, and he gets hit in his eye and behind his ear. And instead of freaking out, he says to his aunt, I know God is here, and I know I'm going to be okay. He might lose his eyesight, but he didn't lose his ear sight. He knew God was with him. There's a story about a father who takes his son skiing in the Alps. I've never been to the Alps. Have y'all been to the Alps? A father takes his son skiing in the Alps, and they decide to do one last run on the slopes. I don't understand skiing. It's cold. I just don't get that. Let's be cold on purpose and throw ourselves down a hill. Okay. I don't know. But if it's your flavor, go for it. No, I'm not picking on you online. Do it. This guy decides to take his son up for one more run. They go up to the top of the Alps, up to the top of the mountain, and a blizzard that has been predicted has already come. It is so snowy that they cannot see the hands in front of them. They are just in trouble. And they dig a hole in the snow and cuddle up together to keep themselves warm. And the blizzard they just are snowed out. They wait out the storm overnight as darkness comes. And the next morning they come, they dig themselves out, and they are discovered on the mountain, and they are saved. And when they ask, what happened? How did you do that? We knew, God knew where we were. We knew, God knew where we were. I think Easter is a little bit about God showing up in the dark. But that's not all. I think Easter is also about us finding what we're looking for. Oh my God, we live in a skeptical time, and we have every reason to be skeptical. It's just a hot mess. The list of things that Chad prayed for, and all of the things, all of the tumult, and the Ukraine, Russia, the United States, Chicago, New York City, homelessness, poverty, political warfare that is as egregious, I think, as the violence that's happening in the war theaters around the nation. And I think to myself, why would we believe? Except that there's evidence that if we're looking for signs of God's presence, it exists. 4 years ago, Mommy is diagnosed with cancer, and she's still here. The evidence of God's presence is in the way her body won't stop fighting. Someday she'll likely die from this, but she's still here right now. The evidence of God's presence is in my 5-year-old nephew, who will go and sit on her piano and improvise and play some crazy music and turn and look at her and say, "Grandma, that's some Jesus music for you." The evidence of God's presence is on the subway, when finally somebody gets up and lets a pregnant woman sit down. The evidence of God's presence is in the thousands, countless, tiny, teeny, micro generosities that happen every day, that if we don't look for, we won't see, and they won't add up and count and restore our faith in the midst of dark times. We're going to find what we're looking for. Easter is about having the eyes and the ears and the developed senses to be able to recognize where God is showing up. I got some full-time volunteers working at Middle Church that to me are evidence of ownership of ministry and God showing up. The tender ways that John is patient with my craziness while we're doing Easter and moving and doing the conference, and I'm not always nice. His unconditional love is evidence of God's presence. We will find what we're looking for. And Easter is about that. Having eyes that are willing to see and take in the evidence and let it be about what it is, which is that God is everywhere all the time doing something surprising and gracious and healing and restorational. But that's not all. I think those people buy those Easter clothes and flood our congregations and find us online because they want to be a part of a movement for love and justice. I think they want to be connected to a river of goodness and healing. And I don't think they have to be Christian to be a part of the resurrection love movement. I just don't think it's like that for God. Here's the creed, here's the stuff you're supposed to believe in, and if you don't, you're outside of my river of love. No, that's us. That's our stuff. How many people would be in here if they felt that they could sit in here and not have to call themselves Christian? How many people would be in the room with us if they felt they could sit in here and be with their doubts? How many people would join the movement for justice and love and resurrecting restoration, healing of the world, if they thought they could come with their junk and be accepted just as they are as they come through the door? How many people need the thing that we have, the balm in Gilead, the salve, the healing, the joy, the love, the peace, and we just Don't let them access it because we're just a little too tight in the, you know what I mean. Easter is about quickening, enlivening, restorationing of all of God's people everywhere. My friend Urshad Manji is a Muslim, lesbian, reformist Muslim. Oxymorons abound. She gets death threats every day for being who she is, this brilliant, radical, faithful Muslim woman who believes that she's obeying God when she breaks the rules, who believes she's obeying God when she breaks down the walls, who believes she's obeying God when she lives with her questions, articulates her questions, believes she's being in the God movement when she calls foul on her Muslim brothers and sisters. I think she's a resurrection woman. I think she's living out the Spirit of God that we recognize in Jesus Christ, but that's not the only way to find it. I believe that resurrection, Easter, this moment is about all of us finding a path together to the time when all of us will praise our God in one voice. All of us, in every language, from every tribe, from every race and ethnicity, from every sexual orientation, with our fears, our junk, our anger, our hatred, okay, maybe not that, with our yearnings, with our burdens, with our aspirations, and with our failings, moving toward hope, holding hands, without judgment. I believe that Easter is about that. And that's why those children are getting their Easter clothes, and all those men are down in the barbershop getting their Easter haircut, and all those women are getting their Easter pumps. All of us are wanting to go to the place where we will find God and an identity for ourselves that surpasses labels. Mary couldn't see Jesus because it was dark, and God is in the dark. Mary couldn't recognize Jesus because she wasn't expecting to find new life on the other side of death. We will find what we're looking for. And the thing that we've got is not just ours. The thing that we've got belongs to all of God's people, even to the atheists, even to the ones that don't know that they belong to God. It's juicy and extravagant and generous and wide and expansive. And it is not bound by our creeds and our confessions. Easter is about that. Mary preached a sermon, the first sermon, I have seen the Lord. My question for you is this: given what we've talked about today, have you seen God?